Hey guys, Dean here. So perhaps you've been on social media recently and you've seen all these millionaires or young millionaires with a ton of money, and it's making you kind of have a twisted, warped sense of reality. And like me, you're thinking, well, I should be a millionaire, I should have all this money. Well, let's actually explore the reality of that. Age is just a number, sure, but saving is also important and everyone wants to grow their net worth. Are you on track? Well, let's take a look at how much you should have saved by each age bracket. This is going to be an interesting wake-up call for some people, and also it's going to be a shock when you realize you might not need to be a millionaire at age 20. Okay, let's begin. So let's first start off with age 20, shall we? So at this age, you'll be surprised actually that most people don't actually have any savings, and for the most part, a lot of people aren't actually even in the positive. Most people in this age have student debt to a certain degree, whether that's 10, 20, 30,000, even if it's less or extreme, a lot of people are actually in debt and they're still progressively working towards paying back that debt. So most people are actually in minus. So if you don't have a ton saved at age 20 or your early 20s for that matter, you're not actually usually behind because a lot of people are in the same boat. Most people at age 20 actually don't also consider even saving or investing whatsoever. So it's kind of like an afterthought to most people. Although with a lot of finance channels like this one and a lot of booming online businesses and interest in making money online, a lot of that is shifting. But for the most part, the average person at this age is just wanting to have fun and have experiences rather than preparing themselves for the future. And that's normal. But in this age bracket in 20, it's kind of hard to deny that it is actually the prime time to start investing, or at least starting to gear yourself towards some kind of strategy. At least have it on your mind, right? Now, one thing I need to say though, is don't miss out on experiences or travel for that matter, because it's really important. Trust me, I spent a lot on travel and a visa, but it was all worth it in the end because I have experiences, and from those experiences I have a lot of stories which I can relay in conversations, and a lot of memories which I'm reminded of when I see certain things or do certain things, and those are memories which I'm obviously fond of, and I also shared a lot of experiences with friends on those travels. So I'm really glad that I spent that money to do that thing in my early 20s. Traveling and doing those things when you're 60 or 70, when you have your retirement fund, it doesn't feel the same, trust me. Now, according to the survey by the Federal Reserve of Consumer Finances, you should have $4,745 saved in your bank account. Remember to take this figure with a grain of salt, because like I said, most people don't actually have this, and not all people at age 20 even have a job or are working a part-time job for that matter, because a lot of people are still in their studies to work towards getting that good job. So rest assured, most people will be in the negative and you're not behind, but you should still be aware and looking what to aim for. So in your 20s, you should really just focus on building up good credit and perhaps consider getting your first credit card, especially if you get your first job or your first part-time job where you can actually start paying things off and have the ability to do so. It's also important to start investing a certain sum of money, even if it's not that much, just so you build up that behavior and that good relationship with money and good financial money habits and good management of funds. So start saving and investing. This could be in an ISA account if you're in the UK, or a Roth IRA in the US, and consider launching a retirement account which you can then leverage later in life. Your income is probably going to be low at this age. When I was 20, I was literally making dimes. I wasn't really making anything at all. But if you can, and if you have some kind of income, if you can save even 10% or even 5% of what you're making of the money that's coming in after tax, then this is a good place to be and you're already ahead of the game. Obviously, the ballpark figure is try to save 20% monthly, but at 20 you can't always do that and you might not be making a lot of money. Now, this money that you're saving or allocating, that 10 to 20%, is for an emergency fund which you want to start creating, and also for your investments into certain assets, right? Especially stocks, which we're focused on. So you also want to have around 3 months of living expenses at least, because you don't obviously want to go bust in terms of your housing situation, but this only really applies to people who aren't living with their parents, right? Or if they're having to pay for some kind of accommodation. And try to put this 3 months of rent, so that's 3 times what your monthly rent costs, as a backup. Put that into an emergency account so you can use that later. Emergency accounts are everything from car repairs, health problems and emergencies in that regard, and housing situation problems like potentially not being able to pay your rent on time and then getting moved out by the landlord, for an example, which you don't want to happen. And that moves us on to age 30. So in this bracket, you should have around 1 times your annual salary saved in your bank by 2030. This doesn't really just mean in your bank though, this is just general assets, so this could be in your investment account also, not just real fiat currency sitting in your bank. So basically your net worth or what's in your assets, including your bank and investment portfolio, which will also compound if it's an investment rather than just sit and gather dust in a bank and gain no interest. Now the average figure though, reported by the same survey and data, seems to be around 9,408 to 21,731. So from around 9k to 21k for the savings figure you should have. Now if you haven't managed to hit that target of saving 20% of your income after tax each month, increase from that 10% figure slowly, incrementally, month by month to try and get up to that 20% point. This will be perfect for later so you can compound that and have enough money by retirement. Try to invest your money mainly into low cost ETFs and index funds, especially the S&P 500 for an example. You should also try and split a portion of your income in half to go into savings and the other half into the emergency fund, just like we mentioned before, which you started building initially in the first bracket. Now at this point you should now have raised your credit score from being reliable with your credit card and your financial moves which you've been making. So you've had positive patterns, you've paid off anything which you've borrowed, and you've started building up that score, hopefully somewhere in the 700s range. And that moves us on to age 40. At this point you should have 3 times your annual salary at this point within your bank and across your investments. Average figures here are from 48,710 all the way up to 101,000. Hopefully you should have made use of continuing to invest. Having 100,000 in an investment account with an average annual rate of return of 7% means by the age of 65, when you're going to retire, or the typical retirement age, you'll have about $500,000 or more in tax-free money which you can leverage and spend for the rest of your life. This is due to the nature of your previous investments obviously compounding. Then we go on to the age 50 bracket. So this is just before that kind of final retirement bracket which we're going to cover. So the average rates of saving in the age 50 and above category is $146,068 up to $148,950, around 140 to 150 grand in your full assets, right? This is based on the figure of having around 5 times your annual income in your bank. So 5 years of work, if you were to work 5 years of your life, you should have that in your bank account at age 50. The continuous investments which you've been making will continue to compound for another 10 or 15 years up until that retirement age. And if you haven't already at this point, you should have paid off your mortgage. And like I said, if you haven't already, you should try and find ways to increase your income in order to do so you don't drag on that window across time, so you have to deal with it later. Obviously the goal is to pay off your mortgage as soon as possible in terms of when you've purchased your house, right? And then that takes us up to age 60, where we're just before that retirement age. Now in certain countries it always keeps increasing, but let's stick with a figure of 65, and you want to try and calculate how much money which you're going to require to spend for the rest of your life, okay? So basically you need to calculate how much money during your retirement you're going to need based off the money which you saved up and gained from your investments, from a lifelong saving investments. Now this is really important that you don't guess how much to spend or guess how much money you should have. You don't want to go back to work if you run out of money or go broke, especially when you're getting into that senior age category, because you really want to enjoy the rest of your life stress-free and kind of relax after working for so many years. Especially if you've had a lot of hard jobs or labor jobs, this is where the payoff is going to be when you retire, right? I'd recommend total up your outgoings, so this could be monthly or yearly bills. This could be groceries, rent and insurance figures which are tallied up annually, how much are your annual outgoings, and then go from there. That figure should be times by either 20 or 25, which is the average amount of the rest of your life you're going to have, because most people are going to live to around 80, but we're just going to go off the fact that you might live from 80 to 90, right? This would take you from 85 or 90 years old if you times it by 20 or 25, and this is going to give you the figure. So if the remaining figure is within your saved total, then you're doing something right. But I'd recommend using calculators for this because it's going to be a little bit more accurate than these basic methods I've given you. But for the money which you should have had saved by this point, it's around $221,451, so around 220k, and hopefully hopefully, like I said before, you've put that into investments so it's compounded up to a really healthy amount, right? This should equal to around 7 times your annual rate of income. So 7 years of hard work, by the age of 60, you should have that figure in your bank and in your investments, shared between the two. Hopefully, you haven't learned this advice too late in life and you've been able to leverage investing and saving earlier on in your life so you don't have to suffer through retirement. If you have been investing consistently for a long time now, with consistent saving in an investment account, you should have well over $1 million, maybe $1 million, $1.1, $1.2 million from your investments into index funds and ETFs, and you can basically live a healthy and relaxing retirement, as long as you've made those calculations so you don't overspend. So that's going to conclude this video on how much you should have saved in each age bracket across time during your lifespan. I think this is really interesting for a lot of young people to learn about this because it kind of sets you up for the future and to prepare for it, and it allows you to basically be alert to the fact that you do need to save and invest your money at some point, especially if you're young. This knowledge is important to learn because they don't teach you in school. If you want to learn more about investing and budgeting, check out the videos on my channel. I also have videos on starting a business and also travel videos, so make sure to subscribe if that interests you too. Thanks for watching.